I now have extremely compelling evidence that Blake Lively actually gave New York Times her complaint before she filed it with the Civil Rights Department. Comment says, this is great research. I don't suppose anyone has checked the metadata on the images in the New York Times article. Beautiful genius. But it wasn't the metadata where I found the date. It's the fact that New York Times labels their hosted images with dates. And this image, if you follow the images linked in the New York Times article, each image is hosted with its own link. We zoom in right here. You can see that says December 16th, 2024, which means that unless New York Times mislabeled the date for this, New York Times had Blake Lively's complaint for at least 5 days before they published the article. And it's not just this one. All of the graphics that they used are hosted like that. This one is dated December 20th, December 20th, December 18th, and then this one is from the 21st. There was no date attached inside the actual metadata, or maybe I'm just not technically advanced enough to be able to find that.
Tell us what we don't know about this fight between these two.
What they did was they worked with the New York Times. Her publicists worked directly with the New York Times. They shared illegally obtained text messages. They shared those together. They concocted a complaint that they filed with the Civil Rights Division. They omitted texts that would have provided context.
Have you ever stopped to think about what really goes down when a Hollywood scandal suddenly blows up the headlines? One minute it's whispers, the next it's a full-blown media storm, with rumors flying, news outlets dropping stories overnight, and shocking accusations hitting the internet like wildfire. But then, bam, online detectives start pulling receipts, and the whole narrative flips upside down. This time, all eyes are on a messy showdown involving actor-director Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, and her husband, Ryan Reynolds. At the heart of it all, a puzzling New York Times piece that might not be as straightforward as it looks. Hidden in the article's metadata, explosive clues suggest this breaking story was already brewing behind the scenes long before anyone saw it. And now, social media is buzzing with theories that a full-on Hollywood smear machine could be at work. But the million-dollar question is, who's really pulling the strings? Could Blake Lively's legal team have been quietly setting up this narrative before it ever went public? Or was Baldoni himself moving pieces in the background, trying to control the fallout and protect his own name? The deeper you dig, the shadier it gets. What started as a routine legal filing is now spiraling into what might become one of Hollywood's biggest and ugliest showdowns. It all kicked off when fans woke up to see a bombshell New York Times article accusing Justin Baldoni of serious misconduct on set.
Does any of this matter? Well, because Blake Lively's team are trying to say that Justin Baldoni's team are the first people that leaked this information to the press. And yet somehow on the 16th of December, they're able to make the headline image. We already knew because of the timeline, New York Times essentially had to have it in advance. Now I feel like we just know a little bit better about when they definitely had it by. I think this is proof that they had it at least before the 16th of December because they did have to develop this graphic. And by the way, it's really important who gave it to the media first, not who published it first, because the actual rule of professional conduct, Rule 3.6, which Blake Lively's team is trying to say that Justin Baldoni's team violated. The part where it talks about when you can defend yourself, a lawyer can make a statement to protect their client if a publicity not initiated by the lawyer or the lawyer's client. Not initiated, and I think initiated is the important word. It doesn't say published, it says initiated. And if the New York Times started making graphics for their articles by the 16th of December, I think it is very clear who initiated the release to the media. I mean, it was clear before this, but
The piece leaned heavily on Blake Lively's official legal complaint, putting Baldoni at the center of a string of disturbing allegations. But here's where it gets suspicious. The Times published the article fast, too fast. Almost instantly, people were asking, how did they compile so much evidence and detail practically overnight? Normally, in high-profile cases, reporters get tipped off early or are handed official statements so they can prepare in advance. But this timeline, it was unusually tight, almost rushed. Baldoni's supporters argued that he was blindsided, given barely any time to respond before his name was dragged through the mud. Meanwhile, Lively's camp insisted they followed all the proper steps, hinting instead that Baldoni's own team might have leaked the documents first. Confusion only got worse as fans from both sides started tearing apart every single detail on social media, like detectives working overtime. Suddenly, a whole new theory exploded online. This wasn't just reporting, this was a full-blown smear campaign designed to wreck Baldoni's credibility. That's a dangerous claim because no major outlet wants to look like they're part of a Hollywood takedown machine. But then came the twist no one saw coming. Evidence began popping up that suggested this whole thing might have been way more coordinated than anyone realized. The real shocker dropped when a random TikToker who called themselves a metadata expert started digging into the photos used in the New York Times article. For those who don't know, metadata is like a digital fingerprint. It shows hidden details about when files were created, edited, and uploaded. What the TikToker uncovered set the internet on fire. The images in the Times article had URL codes with dates stamped days before the story ever went public. And it wasn't just one mistake. Multiple files carried suspicious timestamps, pointing to the idea that the article was being prepped long before Blake Lively's complaint was even filed. These digital breadcrumbs sparked a frenzy, with debates raging about media ethics, Hollywood's invisible influence, and who's really running the show behind the curtain. In Hollywood, nothing is ever as clean-cut as it looks, and this case proved it. To some watchers, that complaint looked less like raw evidence and more like a smoking gun, a sign that everything might have been staged from the start. Suddenly, whispers of collusion were everywhere. Could the Times have staged its breaking news coverage, setting up visuals and headlines for maximum shock before the facts were even official? Critics definitely think so. Normally, top-tier reporters take time to call all sides, fact-check every angle, and make sure the story is airtight. But here, the speed felt way too tight, almost like the coverage had been packaged and waiting in the vault, ready to drop the second court papers landed. No wonder speculation started spreading online like wildfire. It had all the ingredients of a Hollywood setup. The phrase Hollywood smear machine might sound over the top, but in Tinseltown, it's practically a playbook. Anytime a major star gets caught in controversy, armies of publicists and lawyers jump in, spinning polished narratives, planting exclusives with reporters, and shaping the storyline before the public even knows what's happening. On the surface, it's always about truth or justice, but behind closed doors, it's pure strategy. PR insiders know the game. They pitch scoops to powerful journalists, frame the angles to make their side look good, and push deadlines to ensure their version of events hits first. But what left people floored this time was the speed and the detail of the New York Times article. It looked almost too polished, too ready, like it had been waiting in the wings. Even more suspicious,
New York Times apparently reviewed 1,000 or more pages of text messages. They would have seen it. Justin never wanted to hurt her, never wanted to be negative to her. And it's all over the place. There are text messages that refute every single thing in that complaint. And it's just disgusting when you go after someone, you try to destroy their
claims started flying that some of the individuals named in the piece were never even contacted for verification. That's not just sloppy, it's explosive. To make things murkier, several journalists who were credited in the reporting came forward, insisting they never received calls, emails, or payments from Baldoni or his legal team. They swore they kept their independence, yet their statements cast serious doubt on how the Times framed the whole situation. If they weren't tied to Baldoni, then why did the article read like a perfectly lined up takedown? Skeptics pounced on that gap immediately. Meanwhile, Blake Lively's supporters pushed back, saying Justin Baldoni, being a man in a position of power, would have every reason to manipulate the narrative himself. And maybe that's true, but even if Baldoni wanted to twist things in his favor, it still doesn't explain all the inconsistencies that popped up once people started dissecting the article. The timeline, the details, the missing contacts, it all screamed like there was more going on than anyone was admitting. And then the legal firestorm hit. Baldoni didn't just clap back, he went nuclear. He filed lawsuits demanding hundreds of millions of dollars, targeting not only the New York Times, but also Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and potentially others who might have had a hand in the mess. The numbers sound outrageous, but so are the stakes. Careers, reputations, and livelihoods are dangling by a thread, and one wrong move could end it all. Even a media giant like the New York Times could be staring down a financial nightmare if Justin Baldoni actually proves that this was malicious intent or orchestrated defamation. In the cutthroat world of celebrity disputes, the line between fair reporting and straight-up PR warfare is razor thin. Fans and internet sleuths are now left picking through metadata trails, leaked files, and carefully worded statements, trying to separate truth from spin. On the other side, Blake Lively and her team are holding their ground. Their claim? Baldoni himself broke professional conduct rules by leaking confidential documents to the press first, setting off a tidal wave of bad publicity against Blake. That's their central argument, that a powerful actor-producer like him should never retaliate in the media after a formal complaint is filed. They say this kind of behavior can add extra pressure, silence victims, and even keep cycles of abuse alive. But here's the catch. Legal experts point out that U.S. law usually allows lawyers and clients to make public statements to defend themselves if the other side starts playing the press game first. So the question becomes, who really lit the match? Was it Baldoni trying to smear Lively with half-truths before the courts got involved? Or was it Lively's camp strategically timing a press release to blindside him, leaving him scrambling with no real chance to defend himself? Both sides swear they were ambushed, and that's what makes this so messy. Neither wants to admit they pulled the first move, but someone did. And while the official battle plays out in courtrooms and newsrooms, there's another war happening online. A whole new generation of digital detectives has jumped into the fight. TikTok threads, YouTube exposés, and independent blogs are dissecting screenshots, pouring through archived files, and digging into court records like pros. Their investigations, fueled by viral attention, are shaping the public perception of this case just as much as any headline in the Times. In today's world, the crowd isn't just watching the drama. They're actively rewriting the script in real time. Some of these online investigators come from real journalism or media studies backgrounds. Others are just sharp fans refusing to take Hollywood's official story at face value. Together, their findings have put the New York Times under the kind of spotlight it probably never wanted. People are asking hard questions. Did the paper skip even the most basic fact-checking with the people mentioned in the article? How did so many contradictions slide past editorial oversight? And the biggest bombshell, why were crucial images uploaded to the Times servers days before Blake Lively even filed her complaint? These unanswered questions spread like wildfire, shaking even longtime Times readers who suddenly began doubting the paper's credibility. In an age where trust in mainstream media is already fragile, this controversy feels especially dangerous. For decades, traditional outlets have branded themselves as the ultimate gatekeepers of truth. But the second bias, or even sloppy shortcuts, start to show. That authority crumbles. Meanwhile, independent creators are bypassing the usual PR spin, dropping raw data, pulling metadata receipts, and even conducting direct interviews. They're cutting through the smoke and mirrors, letting the evidence speak for itself, and audiences are eating it up. But the stakes are about to explode. If Baldoni's legal team digs up proof that Blake Lively's lawyers coordinated with the Times to stage the coverage, the fallout could be massive, hitting not just Lively, but Ryan Reynolds, the newspaper itself, and possibly even major studios tied to the players. On the flip side, if Lively's camp proves Baldoni and his allies leaked sensitive documents to smear her in the press, his entire credibility in Hollywood could shatter overnight, taking his career down with it. Hollywood has always thrived on secrecy, backroom deals, and quiet cover-ups, but a scandal this big threatens to rewrite the rule book. With lawsuits, social media sleuthing, and major media all colliding, the narrative isn't just shifting week by week, it's changing hour by hour. And today, it might be one side dominating the headlines, but by tomorrow, a single discovery could flip the entire story upside down. Right now, it looks like Blake Lively's team may have thrown down the first real bombshell. Newly surfaced documents appear to back up her claims, and public opinion is swinging wildly, shifting toward whichever camp delivers the loudest, boldest, or most shocking headline at the moment. This constant cycle has turned the feud into a high-engagement frenzy, but it's also dangerous because every twist carries massive risks for the reputations of everyone involved. You can already see the ripple effects online. Fans of both Baldoni and Lively are going at it harder than ever, filling comment sections with fiery arguments, while legal experts jump in to debate the thin line between free speech and defamation. Behind the scenes, Hollywood's top PR pros are quietly calling this a cautionary tale. It's proof that once you're seen as manipulating the press, the blowback can be brutal. Some insiders even believe this saga could climax in a televised courtroom showdown, with every detail streamed and dissected in real time for the world to watch. Others, though, say it's more likely to end in a quiet settlement. simply because both sides know each new revelation could flip public perception again. And in a town as secretive as Hollywood, the internet has become a wrecking ball. Damning metadata, internal emails, even unreleased files could surface if subpoenaed, or worse, leaked online. Add Ryan Reynolds' name to the mix, and suddenly this isn't just messy, it's explosive. Every rumor, every leak, every legal move instantly becomes tabloid gold, guaranteeing the headlines won't slow down anytime soon. And if this fight keeps dragging on, we could be staring at years of depositions, shifting alliances, and non-stop controversy. In Hollywood, reputation is everything, and with power players like this on the line, nobody wants to walk away looking like they lost. At its core, this saga isn't just about Justin Baldoni fighting back against Blake Lively's accusations. It's a case study in how fast misinformation spreads, how easily mainstream outlets can shape or even twist reality, and how ordinary internet sleuths can dig up details that flip the whole story on its head. What we're watching isn't just a feud, it's a lesson in how power, publicity, and perception collide under the blinding spotlight of global attention. This mess is also a warning of how dangerously blurred the line between fact and rumor becomes once lawsuits, fame, and personal lives crash into each other. So, what are we really seeing here? Genuine accountability for misconduct or a carefully staged media takedown? Who's actually pulling the strings and who's being set up to take the fall? For now, only the people at the center of this tangled web know the full truth. But one thing is guaranteed: as more court documents leak, as depositions pile up, and as social media keeps dissecting every shred of evidence, the gap between official narratives and raw receipts is only going to get wider. Will Baldoni's lawsuits actually land a historic blow against the New York Times? Can Lively prove her claims without the leaks poisoning public opinion? And where does Ryan Reynolds truly stand? Is he simply protecting his wife, or is he playing his own strategic game behind the curtain? These questions hang over the entire drama, leaving the public stuck in a real-life cliffhanger. Maybe the biggest takeaway is that no one, no matter how powerful, can ever fully control the story anymore. In the digital age, metadata doesn't lie, and social media won't stop digging until every hidden piece comes out. The only certainty: more twists, more leaks, and more jaw-dropping revelations are on the way. If you've been hooked by this breakdown, drop a comment below with your thoughts. Do you think this is justice or just a takedown plot? Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who follows Hollywood drama, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next bombshell we uncover. See you in the next one.